Hey, what's up, Liron here, and in this episode of Painting Masters, we'll look at works by Maynard Dixon. Now, if you remember, in the last couple of videos, I shared with you that one of the main things I want to work on is temperature. And so I was suggested to look at this artist by one of my followers here, and also on other platforms, so there were several recommendations. And I dove a little into his work, and I can see why it was recommended to check it out. The colors are on point, and the temperature and the harmony is really on point. There's also a lot of simplification going on, and a courage to keep things empty when there aren't any details that are necessary. So I think you're gonna love his work, and I think it will help me to look at it, analyze it a little more up close. So with that, let's get to it. So I really like when someone's work is consistent, because right from the first painting, you can see a lot of the things that I think are very useful for me to observe in his work. I actually want to start talking about the drawing for some reason. Look at this road, how well he conveys that it actually curves around this hill, or perhaps goes downhill and then straightens. All of these things really require careful observation and understanding of what you're looking at, and also very careful work. Many times you have to give these things their required attention, because that really shows in the final result. Now let's talk about the main thing here, which is the temperature and the colors, which I think are fantastic. So a couple of interesting things to note. If you look at just even this mountain ridge, starts with a bit of a purpley pastelish kind of blue, and if you look at the lower sections, there's actually quite a lot of warmth here. So it goes a little warmer. It could still be on the cool side if you compare it especially to things in the foreground, but still it gets a little warm, and that really conveys, I think, the sense of strong sunlight, and so the ground itself reflects back some warmth onto either the mountain ridge or the atmosphere in general, causing this lower section to look a little warmer. And as we get closer, you get this very nice mix here on the road. So instead of just using a dead gray, which I really dislike, he uses a lot of these warm ochres and then some cool but fairly muted colors as well. So you get, I think the yellows here are a little more saturated, the blues are a little more cooled down and muted, and these transitions here make it a very beautiful, very beautiful and interesting impression. The fields or the sides of the road, here it goes a little more with the stronger oranges and browns, and even some redder browns, but within all of that, the shadows are quite cool, so you do get a lot of interest in that regard. Now look at the courage to leave these large areas blank. Look at the mountain ridge. Nothing there, not even suggested details really. It's just the brush marks and that's it. Look at all these fields to the side. A very loose interpretation that could be quite loyal to the source. We didn't see it, we don't see it, so we don't know exactly what it looks like. But keeping this nice balance really conveys, and especially with the mountain, I would say, and the road, that the mountain is far back and the road is much closer, because we get to see all the details on it, the imperfections on it, if you will, of these cracks maybe, or in unevenness in it, which I find really interesting. So right off the bat, we get a painting that's fairly simple but still showcases some of what's really interesting to me in his work. Now notice how the colors are also few. So this is it reminds me of a Velasquez palette of maybe a warmer blue. You get to see a lot of warmth in the blues, a lot of purpliness. That's not a word, I know, but a lot of warm blues. A lot of these yellow ochres and maybe some burnt umbers or burnt siennas. And these three, without a very dominant red, create these very pleasing color harmonies and compositions. I mean, a lot of magic and limitations. Now, for all I know, he could have used many more paints, but it still doesn't change the fact that the harmonies feels at least simple, okay? I don't know exactly what blue that is, or what, it could be a more cerulean blue. It could be, I don't know, there's maybe more than 3 colors here, obviously, but it does keep things very simple, at least visually. So we're going to have to go a little faster because there's a bunch of them, and this was the simplest one. Look at this, a bit of a more complex composition, but the clouds still greatly simplified. He paints a lot of scenes from the western parts of the U.S., so you get these open areas, some more of a desert feeling in some of them, open skies with large dominant clouds in most of his works. Now look at the mountain ridge. We're going to talk about the colors in a moment, but look at the shapes of the shadows here. This is really clever. The shapes of shadows, usually more than conveying the shape of the object that casts them, like the cloud in this example, casting a shadow, more than that, it conveys the shape of the surface on which they are cast. So the shadows here, their shape actually helps convey the mountain's shape rather than the cloud's shape. And that's a very good means for creating lots of interesting shapes and also conveying the volume of the mountains. They actually look like they have volume and depth in them. Now look at something interesting. If we just look at this lower corner here, the mountains, this isn't black, it's very dark blue. But if you look at the trees here, they are black. So he does utilize, or very, very dark, green, blue. He does utilize black color fully in some areas and also here in the shadows. And it really helps to convey the sense of distance when you do this kind of a thing. This tree feels like it's closer to us than the mountain ridge. Also, there's a bit more darkness near what I believe to be closer to the focal point rather than the sides of the painting. So this does go a little darker here compared to here. But again, very simple shapes and a very weird composition in a way. Just a sliver of land here that's fairly light right next to the bottom. You wouldn't necessarily think about arranging things that way, but it works really well in this case. Now look at one more thing I wanted to say. Yeah, the edge of the cloud here and the mountain, they're almost merged. Look at this area. It's really merged together. And that helps us as the viewer to just feel a better sense of unity. Look at this. You see there's a harder edge and then it goes softer. And it's nice because that way you aren't too... There is a big risk in these strong contrasts of light and dark, and this alleviates some of it. You're not fully focused on just this area. You kind of let it slide to the side, which I love. I love this kind of a smart use. Now, this is one of the only ones that I couldn't find a signature on. Hopefully it's still his. It really looks like his style. So you get a lot of horses and some people on the horses. Then these red sand, deserty mountains in the background. Cliffs, very strong shapes, very sharp transitions of light and shadow. And one very interesting thing to note here is he's still keeping the colors fairly simple. So you get these strong blues and then these strong reds. Both of these are fairly saturated. Now, what I love also about his paintings, if we zoom out a bit, there is still a good sense of realism from afar. It does feel like the values are on point, which is very interesting to think about. Because it looks very simplified, the colors, the shapes, but still there is a hint of realism in it. Now look at something, again, very interesting. The mountains that are a little farther at the back, which, by the way, makes them look monumental when you compare to the people and the horses up front. Look at the values once again. This isn't too dark of red. It's very easy to look at the difference between this part and this part and say, oh, this is so much darker, but it's still not black. It's not even close. It's more of a brown. Let's look at it like that. Brown orange, very muted. And look at the people here. They're much darker. And look at the shadow. It's a little darker. It's gradually getting darker the closer it is to us. So this helps to bring the focus to the people here. It makes sure that the mountain ridge, which is huge, doesn't compete too much with what we have in the foreground. There's a good sense of strong saturated color here as opposed to maybe a bit cooler and lighter color there. Sorry, not lighter, but just cooler temperature. So you see, there's just a lot of interesting things. This is really a good lesson for me, and I think the next time I'm outside, I'll really try and simplify. This gives me good inspiration to that. Look at this one again, the very beautiful subject, someone lighting a fire outside. And the colors, obviously, the scope of colors has been really moved towards the cooler ones. So mostly you get a lot of blues in the foreground, but then a bit of where the sun still shows a bit of yellow. The sky is kind of a combination of the two, but look at the tree. That's really nice. The line of light or the line of shadow cast by the mountain, you see the sun goes down, so the bottom part of the tree is in the shadow, but the top part is in the light, and that's where you get these beautiful browns and reds. Look, they read like red compared to the blue, but it's actually browns and oranges, and a bit of greens there in the background. So look at all these brush marks. This is really, really nice. And I actually wonder what medium it is. This looks a bit like watercolor even, though I think most of his paintings aren't. I haven't even checked. That's how I just jumped into looking at his paintings. And then, now let's talk a bit about the composition here. Very interesting. You get a lot of diagonal shapes that really help to show this is a mountainside. The sky is very non-intrusive. It's kind of sent to the back. A lot of very interesting things going on here, but I have to say my favorite spot is really this area. Just beautiful, beautiful. Let's jump into some others. So this one is fairly different from the other ones. The signature is also different. So it's very interesting to think maybe it's from a different time period. We worked a little differently, perhaps. Sorry about the bottom bar keeps popping up because I touch it. And here, the colors are a little more saturated all throughout the painting. So you get these strong oranges that are almost pure reds in these blues. And look at the rough brushwork here. Very rough and very direct in a way that's really beautiful in my opinion. The mountains in the background, fairly strong, dark, rich blue. Look at this. The strength of this color is insane. This is more of a warmer one. This is a bit more of a cooler one here up top where the sky is. Very visible brush marks. And this is, I don't know if that's a cow or a building. Who knows? Let's zoom out a bit. Yeah, that's probably a structure hidden by the tree because it looks like it's in the same distance compared to these structures. So it's probably another building of sorts. So yeah, just a really interesting one and different from the others. And this one's seriously cracked. As you can see here, the paint really cracked. That happens. Now here's one of my favorites. I think one of the best executions of light and shadow here. Just so good, all of these details. And again, notice the closer we are, the stronger contrast. The darkers get darker. And the farther you get these very simplified shapes and impression, the cows or bull in the foreground, then the farther you go, it's just simpler, hinted at. I love these blurry edges down at the bottom. This is essentially one shape. You see the shadow on the cow is one shape together with the bottom and with these, stronger, not stronger, but rather darker shadows. They're not even darker. Look at this. This is darker than the environment because it's a little misty, foggy, dirt, noisy texture. It's just beautiful, beautiful work. Composition, genius. I really like it. This is about the center, so you get this, the shape, the main focal point a little to the left. And it's very not obvious the way he does these things because look at, for example, you'd think, okay, I have this focal point here, maybe let's balance it out with these two people here. But he doesn't do that. He goes with all of the main points of interest consolidated in one area. And this is a repeating theme. Many times I would think to myself, why not place that on the other side? But it actually works. So it goes to show you there are endless of ways of composing. Now, I'm going to just point an interesting thing about every painting from here on to the last one because I don't want this video to be super duper long, but look at these cast shadows here. Beautiful, beautiful. And the difference in their temperature, that's really nice. You get these browner umbers and then these warmer lilacs and blues, and it's just really, really nice. And it's one of the things I really like about this one. Next up we have this, just a beautiful subject to this adobe house structure. I'm not sure how to what to refer to it like. Just really, really nice composition with this triangle and the tree. Just lovely, lovely work, and I really appreciate these shadows and all of that. Let's see what else we have here. So this is extremely blurry, but I did want to include it just for its quality. Look at that. I mean, the painting's quality, not the image quality. If we zoom out a bit, it may be a little less annoying. This one's called Prisoner, I believe. It's probably a prisoner. And look at these, it's just the shapes, the details, so good. And I really wonder how he was able to produce these using photographs as well. I don't know how you get these shadows in while people are moving, while things change and shift. I wonder what the reference for this was. It's really interesting because there were cameras then, obviously, but the question is, was there access to them? I'm really not sure. This one's 16, I think, 1916. Next one, another one of these open spaces, still works really nicely, consolidating some areas of interest in one place, like here and maybe here. And look at these strong saturated blues. You get very saturated blues compared to the shadows here in the foreground, and that creates a very nice separation between the two. So really, really good. And you can pause the video if you want to look in some more details. Look at these shapes. So edited and so simplified, yet they work really well. So many diagonals here that really work together. Like, for example, these diagonals kind of point you towards the trees. So you follow them and you get to the trees. That's a really nice compositional means. I really want to simplify my work based on, and after seeing these, I really want to try and simplify my compositions, and I wonder how that will work. Maybe it's the subject selection from the beginning. Maybe some subjects just aren't as suitable to this kind of work. Look at this one. It's so nice. The details on the horse and the ropes and everything. That's so good. Here's one I really like. And one of the things I love about these ones is you get, again, the difference. My nose is itchy because I have a nose hair. Sorry. It's annoying. Look at these trees compared to the background. They're much lighter, much warmer. The colors are really the world of a difference here. And this is so nice, the composition. All of these trees lean to the right. Maybe it's because of the wind. It's very consistently blowing in that direction. The cloud actually supports that direction. Look at that movement. And then the mountains also kind of supporting it. The ground gives it a little more structure, so it's a little more horizontal, less diagonal. But again, empty spaces, not being scared of them. That's really interesting. Because when you allow yourself that, you start maybe to think, what other means can I use to create interest, to create details, even in a way that's non-detailed, which is a very interesting concept. Here's another one, a very interesting value scheme here that I think is so much more clever than you would think at first glance. So if we zoom out a bit, this one has a very realistic quality to it, especially this area here at the background. Sorry if you're watching this on your phone and now it's super tiny. I'm going to zoom back in a bit. Especially this area. It's just such a good sense of light and shadow. And again, these shadows are super light on the tree, maybe exaggerated, maybe they aren't as light, but it's still a good means of sending this tree to the foreground and sending the background to the trees to the middle ground or background. And I want you to look at one more thing here. This cliffs or mountain ridge, look at how using the highlights and the warmth, temperature here, the reds on these parts, this part, triangular, and this another sort of triangular part, really separate them from these cliffs at the background. Even though they're probably connected in a way, here probably, and also here, it just makes this lovely distinction between the two. And obviously, these areas are sunlit, so it makes them pop a little more. There's a lot that goes on here, really. Here's another really, really nice one. Look at these. This is one of the best quality images I could find, so you really get to see the brush marks. So quite a lot of things going on within them in terms of the details here. You notice this, these touches of brown and yellow within the green. And there's a lot of variety in the colors and saturation and hue that creates this interest within the defined areas of light and shadow. But also there's this nice, relaxed sense of openness to it. And maybe a lot of the empty spaces are meant to convey that kind of a thing. Just a sense of openness. And it will be interesting to experiment with that. You know, just not running away from this, adding all of these fewer details and stopping. Look at this one. Crazy color harmony. Strong blues in the background, warmer greens. I love these olivey greens. They're among my favorite colors. And a very interesting composition. And the house here really, really is conveyed beautifully. And to think that this is so old, you get really a view into the past. And I know also he painted a lot of scenes in the Great Depression, so not necessarily the happy and positive parts of the past, for sure. When you document history like that, you get both. But I do love the serenity of some of these, you know, natural scenes in which you don't see people, so you know, they have to be probably positive in a way. And the last one, I want to wrap up with this one. It's just beautiful. It's one of the most unique ones I've seen in so many ways and on so many levels. Very sharp composition. Look at this. Let's just zoom out a bit. Look at this sharp arrowhead-like shape of horses. So the subject is very interesting, you know, wild horses. The composition is very interesting. You get these sharp arrowhead-like shape, really. You get the colors that are fascinating. Look at these blues and oranges, a lot of secondary colors here, greens, oranges, and purples. But then look at also the shapes here in the background, so unique. All of these blues are so unique. The very stylized approach to drawing these cliffs and mountainsides, it's just really, really nice. And then if you look at the focal point, clearly the horses, and this is probably the secondary focal point, and these trees and bushes, move to the side to leave all of these areas blank and empty. But if you look at the horses, they also have this huge variety in them. So you get a little bit of gray, but then oranges, strong oranges and reds. This one is red compared to this orange, and strong blues and strong, just beautiful. Look at the shadows, blue on top of yellow. That's so good. A variety of edges, sharp, and then contrasted directly next to it with this soft, which is why I wanted to save this one for last. There's just so much going on here that works in a almost fractal-like manner. From this most zoom in you can go to the farthest you can come out, it's all working in harmony together. Very beautiful scene, very positive, I think, nature scene, which I love, and I really hope you enjoyed seeing his paintings with me. Quite an interesting experience. I will have to think how I'm gonna combine these beautiful aspects into my own work. And I'm really trying to continue growing by looking at art that is vastly different from my own. So in any case, thank you so much. Now let's wrap it up face to face. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. As you can see, a lot of focus on large shapes, a lot of clarity in them. You can simplify things and keep them, let's say clarity is a different vector than necessarily the amount of detail. So you can have clarity when you have a lot of details, you can have clarity when you have fewer details, but I actually like his approach to having fewer details and also keeping the clarity, and together with the colors and you can see it's not the same colors, they don't repeat, and he's also playing around with more saturation, less saturation, so it's not like he's a one track minded fully. There is a lot of variety within that that I want to bring into some of my work and keep it simple in a way. It's the hardest thing in the world to keep things simple in many regards. So in any case, I hope you enjoyed this one. If you have, please drop a like and a comment down below. I really appreciate it, and it helps me reach more people, and I know quite a lot of people enjoy these episodes, so I'm going to keep going. I have a huge list of artists I still haven't gotten into, and if you have any more ideas, feel free to drop a comment down below, let me know again, or send me a message, whatever you want. And I definitely, if I like the artist's work and I feel like I can talk about it, I will definitely add it to my list, and I'm always looking for new artists. So thank you so much for that. I will catch you again in the next video.